Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to IO Radio with your host Sal Bayat and myself, Adam Smith. Today we've got a really interesting guest. Before we bring her out, a little bit of background. If you watched the last episode, we did a video where we played a video of a Texas mining facility that was moving into Texas, and they had a nice little video advertising all their stuff. We kind of picked it apart, and I guess Sal did a little bit more research and found out, there's some organization that is opposing what's going on over there. And so our guest today is Jackie Sawicky, founder of the Texas Coalition Against Crypto Mining and a member of the National Coalition Against Crypto Mining. And we're going to hear from her, and she's going to talk about what motivated her to join this cause and what the current issues are that she's fighting with. So first off, welcome, Sal.
Thank you, and welcome, Jackie.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I really appreciate y'all shedding light on this subject and issue.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what motivated you to become an advocate fighting against crypto mining?
Thank you for asking. So I'd been researching and looking into crypto when it was really all the rage in 2019, 2020. And as an environmentalist, a Girl Scout, a hippie, the idea of proof of waste is just absolutely disgusting and enraging, especially in the era of climate collapse and the sixth mass extinction event. And these guys and it's all guys, just wasting insane, obscene, immoral, unethical amounts of energy. And they go places, where energy is cheap. So here in Texas, we have a deregulated market, and oil and gas is a huge industry here. And so so I had been, keeping an eye on it. I've actually lost friends because of Bitcoin and crypto, because I had a really great girlfriend I worked with for 12 years, and she got into NFTs. She quit her job, and I was just like, you're an environmentalist too. How can you reconcile these things? And so I'd been pretty anti-crypto for about 3 years or 2 years before the big announcement here. So on April 27th, 2022, we just had our 1-year anniversary. The city of Corsicana had a big secret announcement, and it was live streamed on YouTube, and I caught it. And the mayor, Don Denbo, was just extolling the virtues of this brand new project they were bringing in. And it was the world's largest Bitcoin mine. At the time, the company's name was Riot Blockchain. And they introduced Chad Harris, and he, just a string of lies as usual from these people, and tried to spin it as this incredible thing. But the people online, in the local Corsicana, Navarro County area were immediately just calling it out. Are you kidding me? Our roads suck. The infrastructure, electricity, local infrastructure is just crumbling. We have really crappy internet selection, and way subpar compared to our city folk counterparts in Dallas and Arlington and all that stuff. So there were a lot of red flags and alarm bells going off, but one of the big ones was at the end of the presentation, somebody in the room asked Chad Harris why they chose Corsicana, and he said, you have two very important things. You have the Navarro switch, which is a huge commercial transmission power area that they bought property right next to, and you have water. So he told us straight up, we're coming to exploit your resources. And that very week, we were having brownouts. The week they made that announcement, we were having brownouts. It was some of the earliest historic demand on the grid, because it's getting so hot so early. And the other day it was 90 degrees. So that was how I'd been really anti-crypto for a while, but when it actually literally came to my county is when so the announcement was made on April 27th, May 1st, 2022, we created what was then the Concerned Citizens of Navarro County. But it's become so much bigger than just Navarro County. Texas is now #1 in crypto mining. And we know, based on some testimony, that they're using about 2 million homes worth of energy every day. So what really concerns me here in Navarro and in a lot of rural places where these people like to set up shop is we're an indigent county. We have a 16% poverty rate, 17% seniors, many of whom are living on a fixed income. And we know for a fact, without doubt, that these facilities increase electricity bills. So there are people who are struggling to make ends meet right now. There are single moms who are having to choose between feeding their kids and keeping their electricity on. And then the world's largest Bitcoin mine worked in secret with the government, with the local city government for 5 months behind closed doors without telling anyone. So they were very, there were total lack of transparency. And I have had to, over the past year, do numerous records requests to find out just the most basic questions getting answered, because the local government has been so opaque and
Sorry, I think your audio cut out at the end there. You were saying the government's been so opaque and secretive.
Yeah. And that was, so I have, the privilege of working from home. I don't have kids. I have, a little extra time on my hands. So I started this group, and we've been running with it ever since. And then we were contacted by Yvonne Taylor and Abby Buddington of Seneca Lake Guardians. They're the activists that are largely responsible for New York's moratorium. They have been gathering, anytime there's an article written about a new Bitcoin mine or a local group opposed to these Bitcoin mines, the National Coalition Against Crypto Mining will reach out to these local people. And that's how I was introduced to that group. And we've done a lot of really great things. I'm very proud. In just the 1 year we've been, advocating against this technology, we've done a lot, and I'm very hopeful.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were gave some testimony recently for a bill that was passed, or has it been passed?
So the law is SB 1751, and it's the Texas Senate had it was in the Business and Commerce Committee, and I testified there before that committee. 3 of the authors of that bill were in that committee, and it will prohibit tax exemptions, abatements. It will cap how much participation in ancillary services. So what that is getting paid to shut down, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. And then it mandates that they register with ERCOT, and ERCOT is the governing body that kind of oversees the Texas grid. They have to register with ERCOT so we know who they are, where they are, and how much power they're drawing. So that went out of committee unopposed. And so that fast tracked it. And then it was voted on the Texas Senate floor, and it won unanimously. There was 0 opposition to it. So we're very hopeful, but time is ticking. The session's only got like 4 more weeks or something. So we are waiting for SB 1751 to be assigned a committee in the Texas House. So we've asked, our group members and anyone in Texas, please call the Speaker of the House and ask them to assign it to a committee.
Would now be a good time for us to play your testimony during that one of the hearings on that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
We've got it queued up here.
Miss Sawicky.
Hi there, my name is Jackie Sawicky. Thank you so much. I am testifying for Bill 1751. I represent about 700 people in Navarro County. We're called the Concerned Citizens of Navarro County. We are also part of a national coalition against crypto mining. Our group was formed after the surprise announcement that our city, Corsicana, had been working in secret behind closed doors for 5 months with Riot Blockchain to build the world's largest Bitcoin mine in Navarro County. Navarro County firstly, this is going to be built in a residential neighborhood. People were not informed, nor did they consent to the world's largest Bitcoin mine coming to their front yard.
Navarro is an indigent county. We have 16% poverty rate and 17% seniors, many of whom are living on a fixed income, like my mother. We know for a fact that when these facilities go online, they increase everyone's electricity bills. And again, this is going to be the largest, so it stands to reason the increase is going to be substantial. Riot already has North America's largest Bitcoin mine in Milam County. They have a power agreement with Encore, giving them a sweetheart fixed rate rate of 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour until the year 2030, while average Texans have seen their electricity bills skyrocket. They are part of the demand response program. They are paid to shut down, and then they turn around and they sell that stored energy they have in their batteries, that discounted energy, back to the grid at a spot premium price. They are gouging Texans. Riot is sales tax exempt under the guise of being a data center. They get 100% property tax abatements in Milam County on $200 million of property. Riot lost $509 million last year. Some months they made more money from ERCOT's demand response program than by their actual operations. The free market should let failing businesses fail. If Riot wasn't being so heavily subsidized by Texas taxpayers, would they still even be in business? We support this bill, and thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much.
So a great testimony there.
You got a lot in 2 minutes.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you about is you talk about them giving the power back to the grid from their batteries. Are they actually storing energy, or are they just consuming it?
It's a very temporary storage. It's not like a battery warehouse, which Texas is investing in these battery warehouses, because when, they use this excuse about how they're so flexible and they can turn off on a dime and put energy back onto the grid. But it's not a solution. When they say they're stabilizing the grid, it's one of the most infuriating lies, because putting an enormous demand, bringing it to the brink of failure, and then extorting us to shut down or else is not stabilizing the grid. It's extortion. So they're not storing long term, but if they have power, they turn around and sell it up to, now that we know about the New York Times article, they sell that back up to 100 times the price that they got it. And so according to the New York Times article, it's 2.9 cents a kilowatt hour, but Riot Platforms has bragged about having it 2.5 cents. So I don't know who's, it's in the
It's low. It's
and what
low.
are you typically paying?
I mean, ours was 17 cents a kilowatt hour 2 months ago.
So Riot Blockchain, a giant business, is buying electricity for, not quite a tenth, but certainly a fraction of the price that consumers are paying. And I guess this is what we were trying to figure out, was when they're getting this payback for stopping their generation, is that just, are they actually putting energy back onto the grid, or are they just getting a cut of the energy?
They're getting paid to shut their mining rig down, right?
Yeah, like if they reduce their load by 90%, do they get paid the difference between the? We're just not sure about how it exactly works.
So these are programs called ancillary services, and through the New York Times article, we found out that Riot is actually participating in two different types. There's demand response and there's reserve response. So demand response is like in July, when we were seeing record demand on the grid, ERCOT says, hey, can you please shut down and we'll pay you. And so they get, paid to shut down. That's demand response. Reserve response is just them promising to shut down whenever asked, and they get paid either way. So it's pretty egregious when, Texans are struggling, and hundreds of people died during Winter Storm Uri. And during Winter Storm Uri, when hundreds of Texans died, Riot Platforms made like $21 million.
For shutting down, right?
Yes, for shutting down, for not continuing to burden. But this is the other thing about this business, because the fluctuating price of energy, and not so much Riot, because they have a fixed contract, an energy contract with Encore, but a lot of these companies are going to shut down anyway when the price gets high enough. So it's like rewarding them for doing something they were going to already do.
And so they're getting a subsidy for not wasting electricity when Texans need it most.
Right.
Now, it certainly seems as though the claim has been made, especially for your city specifically, Corsicana, that these facilities are helping these communities. They're helping these rural communities. They're creating jobs. They're doing useful work. What would your response be to that, in regards to what you're seeing in the community around you?
Yeah, after a year of records request and investigating this company, I have come to the conclusion that everything that they said to sell this project to the city council, the mayor, John Boswell, the economic development director, every single solitary claim they made is either a partial or a complete fabrication. So during that hearing, we found out through the Texas Blockchain Council, which is the Texas Bitcoin mining lobby group. The Texas Blockchain Council admitted in that hearing that only 2,000 permanent jobs have been created with Bitcoin mining. And we know now that Texas is #1 in Bitcoin mining. So in 14 million
2,000 jobs, not in Corsicana. That's 2,000 jobs across the entire
state. So out of 14 million working Texans, 2,000 of those jobs are permanent full-time Bitcoin mining jobs. So that completely, obliterates the myth that this is job creating. We know, and again, it's gaslighting. You and I both know that these facilities, a bank of computers, do not need a full-time army of employees. We know that. And so a lot of these jobs are gig temporary work. And once the facilities are built, those jobs go away. There's this ethereal number of $10 million over 10 years or something, that they were, again, like these just completely unsubstantiated claims that they made. And I have been asking for literally a year, where did this $10 million come from? Where is this figure coming from?
They're saying in reference to $10 million for what?
Over $10 million, they're going to be creating revenue and generating money in the county. And it's just like, we know now, Milam, the difference between Milam County and Corsicana, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, y'all. That was another thing. So just to back up for a second, they said that they were going to create 250 to 950 jobs here during that announcement. And with that big announcement, there was a press release. In their own press release, it says Milam County is only 2 hours away from Navarro, and so they're going to leverage existing talent. So they're telling their investors, don't worry, we're not going to have to spend too much money on hiring people. But then they're telling the city and the county here, we're going to create 250 to 950 jobs. Well, I spoke with the Connie Cox at the Navarro Chamber of Commerce, and she goes, oh, no, those aren't 250 to 950 permanent jobs. That's at some point in the process, 950 possible jobs would have been created. But that's, it's very it's very like misconstrued.
So they're misleading people. They're making this statement, this propaganda statement, this promotional statement saying, we're going to create 900 jobs, but those aren't permanent full-time jobs, good paying jobs with benefits. That's contract work that at some point it just disappears.
Yep.
And has anybody, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. And another thing that was really shocking over the year that I've been doing this, investigation is not one time did the local authorities leadership ever actually ask an outside neutral party or experts or anyone. They never tried to substantiate any of these claims. They just took it at face value. And so one of the first things we found out was, and everybody has troubles, but Chad Harris was their main salesperson. And we found out very quickly that his last business had gone bankrupt and he had walked out on $1 million loan. So I asked the city, the county, well, he's shared by the city and the county, John Boswell, the economic development director, did y'all do any kind of business background check on these people? And no, of course not, they hadn't. They just heard, we're going to make $10 million over 10 years and we're going to create jobs and, it's going to create taxes and revenues. And they didn't look any further.
Where in fact it's the opposite. The taxpayers are subsidizing these businesses. Has anyone done the math in Texas to determine what is the total amount of subsidy that's been paid to these companies over the course of, I guess, the last 2 years since they banned crypto mining in China?
No, but I'm so curious. I'm not a numbers person at all, but I'm so curious to know how much money, because they get all these abatements and incentives and tax breaks. I'm really curious to know how much money has been starved from the public tax coffers by these companies getting these deep discounts. Because this is just one. Like Riot is just one company, and we are, again, number one in Bitcoin mining. They flooded the state when China kicked them out. Our governor, Greg Abbott, said, we want to come here to Texas. We want to make Texas the crypto mining capital of the world. Because, why? Because crypto mining, wasting an insane amount of energy, is great for the oil and gas industry. So we have to I think there's a really important, we have to keep that in the back of our heads at all times. Like, why are people so excited about this technology? It's not because it's actually useful. It's not because people actually use it. So that's another question I've been asking the Texas Blockchain Council. How many Texans are actually using Bitcoin? And they cannot answer that, because we know now through the New York Times article that Bitcoin mining has cost Texans $1.8 billion in increased energy bills. So make it make sense. Justify that $1.8 billion increase. How many Texans are actually utilizing Bitcoin to justify that extreme waste, that extreme increase in everybody's energy bills?
Well, we did see in the video that there's at least one guy who's heating his pool, so that might make it all worth it.
Right. And we know, that thing drives me nuts too. We know that using Bitcoin mines, ASICs, to heat is still an incredibly inefficient source. We're permaculturalists. It's kind of beyond organic farmers and stuff. And we try not to turn our air conditioner on or our heater on as long as possible. And I have a little space heater, and that little space heater uses, a fraction of the energy that an ASICS does, and it will heat up our whole bedroom and keep you nice and toasty. So that is just so inefficient and a waste. And I'm so sick. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of all the lies and the myths and the excuses that they use. And it's Brandolini's law. That's what it's like dealing with crypto miners all the time. Brandolini's law is like
Brandolini's law?
The energy needed to refute bullshit is magnitude of order bigger than it is to just throw out the bullshit. So they can say crazy shit like, I'm sorry, I'm cussing.
No, that's fine.
We stabilize the grid, and then I have to go, well, actually, no, this is their blah, 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 so it's an incredible, and they did that when they first came. They told the city council members, oh, we're going to do immersion cooled. It's not going to be noise pollution. And then those people disseminated that. And then we found out through their own investor deck, well, actually, no, only 40% is going to be immersion cooled. The rest, 60% of this 1 gigawatt facility is going to be traditional fan cooled. So it's still going to be a noise pollution. So they can say this, oh, it's going to be immersion cooled. There's no noise pollution. We have to uncover the truth. Then I have to go and individually educate every single person who heard their representatives disseminate that lie. And they did it again with the water usage. So here in Texas, it gets very crispy and we are very prone to drought. And last year, a record number of ranchers had to sell their herds early because the price of hay had skyrocketed because of the drought, and people couldn't afford to feed their herds. Record amount of ranchers had to get rid of their herds early. And meanwhile, Connie Standridge, the city manager of Corsicana, is telling us we have plenty of water. And then we were asking constantly, how much water are they going to use a day? So the city had this was another reason why the city of Corsicana is involved. they are superseding the local water authority to sell them water directly. Corsicana was the whole big thing is why they're involved is they're going to be selling $2 million worth of water to this company a year. Well, if they had a dollar amount, then they know how many gallons they're using. They would not answer how many gallons of water are you going to use. Chad Harris, the one time I got to have a face-to-face with him, he said, oh, it's just one big draw, and then we're just going to have to top off every couple of days. Well, guess what? That was a lie. And I had to, through records requests, found out that they are planning on using 1.5 million gallons of water a day during the summer when we're all being told to conserve. And that was what we know of. They came back and asked the city for unfettered access. So there is a facility in New York that uses 365 million gallons of water a day. So I think the 1.5 is a million gallons a day during the Texas summer is a gross underestimate. And yeah, they just lie and lie and lie and lie. And it's up to people like us to debunk it.
So not just electricity, but also water. When Texans not only need it for themselves, but even ranchers and local businesses that are doing something productive for the economy, they're not going to have access to that resource, or they're going to have to pay substantially more for it. So again, we have another subsidy being paid to these crypto mining facilities.
Yeah, and keep in mind that, as we all know, ranchers are, they're creating food for people. This Bitcoin facility doesn't actually create anything tangible or material. It creates no value. It's just to prop up this digital token system that a tiny amount of people are probably exploiting a larger group of people to make a little bit of money on. It's just a really obnoxious model. I don't even want to say it's a business model. It's more of like a Ponzi scheme.
It's just exploitative.
So I want to go back. I want to go back to this New York Times article, which I guess was one of the main things that cracked open the door to all of this. Would you characterize it like that? So let me show.
Well, yeah, it kind of blew the lid off. We've been, locally, just been hammering away at it. I feel really vindicated by that article because I have been shouting from the rooftops for a year now. And I mean, every single thing that I have said has been corroborated and verified in this article. And I'm like, I was right. And, as an aside, I don't live next to the mine here in Corsicana, in Navarro County, outside of Corsicana, but a lot of folks in our group there are people in that neighborhood that are in our group, and they say they have not worked on the site here in over 3 weeks.
I got you.
And then judging by their last month's April's earnings report, they put 0 new ASICs online. So I think there's a work stoppage. I have said from day one that this company doesn't really have the money to build here. The Corsicana expansion was just a ploy to bolster stockholder confidence and get more investors into the grift. But this company is a get rich quick scheme for the C-suite. So Riot Platforms, Riot Blockchain pays their C-suite better than almost any other Bitcoin miners, and Bitcoin miners C-suite pay themselves better than almost all other tech industries. So there's a great article from Blockworks about how much money Riot C-suite is paying themselves. And they've done some really crazy stuff, like their shareholders hate them. Their stock has crashed 90%. At one point it was trading at 70, and now it's, I don't know, it's kind of fluctuating, but $7, $8, $9. So there was twice they've tried to do a class action lawsuit for stock manipulation. And then they've been splitting their stock, and that's how they say they have no debt because they use their stockholders as a piggy bank. So the time before last, they tried to split their stock and their stockholders voted no. So then the C-suite gave themselves a whole bunch of stocks, and then they resubmitted the vote. And guess what? It won. So their stockholders absolutely hate them. And they're just so, I believe that they committed fraud with the SEC, because that's a whole other can of worms. But in December, they claimed to have put 16,000 new miners online. And that's just not, I think it was 1,600, something like that. But like their average is 5,000. And so when they claim to have brought an inordinately high amount, I was like, oh, that's not true. And then Chad Harris got fired in January. So I think that they defrauded the SEC, and Chad Harris got
they made
fired
those
for it.
claims to their investors. That's what you're saying. You're saying they made claims
They
about
they have to. They're a publicly traded company, so they have to submit those reports to the SEC.
Gotcha. So they were saying they were bringing a certain amount of capacity online, which would generate a certain amount of revenue, and if they didn't bring that amount of miners online, that would effectively be the same as fraudulently declaring income. Is that the
Yeah, and then in January they said, "Oh no, one of our facilities was damaged by the storm. We're down 1,700 miners." So they never got that 1,600 miners online, and then they had to make up a lie saying that the building was damaged, and now they're not putting any new. So they're in trouble. There is a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of unanswered questions, and they are absolutely non-responsive to the general public. Yeah.
So the New York Times article kind of basically kind of let a lot of people know what was really going on with these companies coming in, getting these sweetheart deals with the local municipalities. You guys have created an organization. You're fighting this. So there's a local organization and there's a national organization. Can you tell us how the two of those work?
Yeah, we started the Concerned Citizens of Navarro County essentially like 3 days after the big announcement that Navarro County was going to be building the world's largest Bitcoin mine with Riot platforms, Riot Blockchain. And we started a petition. We got like 1,000 signatures. We have almost 700 local members. And then I started, for 1 full month, the local government completely ignored us. So we immediately had hundreds of people in our group. And you have to understand, like, Navarro County is very disenfranchised. People are checked out. People are just, they are not engaged. Like, we just had an election, okay? Out of 25,000 population of registered voters of about 12,000, we had 2,500 people vote, if that tells you anything. You know, like, just the engagement here is they're just so disenfranchised and checked out. So having almost 700 people in the group, having over 1,000 signatures on the petition is actually like a lot, because of how little people they fear. There's a lot of fear of like being identified as somebody who's rocking the boat and stuff like that. So
what are we looking at with this picture here? This is from your Twitter feed.
Yeah, that is the 265 acres that they bought for $12 million. And if you can see on the bottom left-hand corner, that, that's the Navarro switch. So that's like a big commercial.
So they got a plot of land next to one of the major power switches.
Yep. And then if you see the like waterway, so they are right in front of Navarro. Yep. Navarro. What is that one? Creek.
That's a beautiful piece of land, and they're basically bulldozing that and turning it into a facility.
They are clear cutting it. Yes, and that's like with that. Yeah, the next picture that's Milam County. That is their facility in Rockdale.
So that's what you guys have to look forward to.
Correct.
Beautiful.
And the thing about that is, that is in an industrial park. They leased property from Alcoa. So that used to be it used to be an Alcoa aluminum factory. And it was, that's why I say Milam and Corsicana are apples to oranges, because Milam is a much smaller, and they were absolutely economically depressed because when Alcoa went bust, like, that was the main employer. And so, yes, Rockdale has employed people. Yes, they have contributed, and they do a lot of reputation laundering in Rockdale. So they, they help fund the SPCA. They put lights on the football field. For Earth Day, they did some park cleanup or something. So they do like these, public displays of good citizenship, but then they are absolutely exploiting the shit out of these people. So, but here, and like when you're talking about anything tangible, so here in Corsicana, Navarro County, we have a mattress factory, a candy factory, a glass factory, an iron smelt. We have food packaging called Pactiv. So we have real industry. And when it comes to water, I say water is like, it's like Fight Club. They do not talk about the water in Bitcoin. A lot of people have no idea how much water is needed to do one of these facilities. And it's, one of my biggest fears is that there is a fire and there's no water to put it out. Or so that waterway feeds into Richland Chambers Reservoir. Richland Chambers Reservoir is the tap water source of Arlington, Fort Worth. So worst case scenario, the world's largest Bitcoin mine catches on fire, all those toxic metals leach into the waterways, and Arlington, Fort Worth's water is contaminated. They did not do an environmental impact study. There are 2 pairs of nesting bald eagles in this area. Nobody cares until something awful happens. I called every single possible state, local, and federal environmental agency, and that was like the first time I cried. I got off the phone with like the 12th agency, and essentially they all said, until something awful happens, there's nothing we can do. And as someone, I was born and raised in Texas. I was a Girl Scout. I love the natural beauty of Texas. And here it's like sold to the highest bidder, and it's so deregulated. And we are nonpartisan, but personally, as an environmentalist, there is a difference. Republicans will sell the last drop of water to the highest bidder. And we are trying to conserve water. We're trying to make things more energy efficient. And
now I
so-
notice here, this bill that's going to sanction the crypto companies. It's sponsored by 3 Republicans. I mean, I understand that the notion that there's a Democrat with any amount of power and influence in Texas is probably not really likely. So not all Republicans obviously are on the crypto bandwagon here.
Right. Yeah. But it's not so much a environmental thing as it is just,
They're not in on the grift, so they're not going to support it.
Correct. They're hearing these claims and they're calling BS on it, because like Senator Colquist, when I was rambling off that list of all the sweetheart deals they get, she was just shaking her head, because she said that she believes a big part of their business model is incorporating these subsidies. And so when I rattled off all those things that just this one company is getting, she was just shaking her head like, yeah, I mean, we should all be absolutely disgusted, because they come here for our cheap energy and then they drive that energy cost up. So
Right.
it's not cheap once they
And-
get here.
And so, in terms of helping to, ameliorate the situation or improve things, you have a petition. So people can still go and sign that petition. If there's somebody that's in Texas right now that's listening to this that wants to do that, they can still go there and sign that.
Yeah. I think I made a new one too for the SB 1751, but petitions don't really hold much power here in Texas, and what really matters is like getting the word out and informing people. So here locally, again, we're an indigent county. Our one legitimate newspaper is behind a paywall. So there are people in Navarro County, in Corsicana, who still don't even know about Riot Blockchain. And the city doesn't advertise anything. They're not going to be talking about these sweetheart deals they're doing behind closed doors. And the newspapers literally are not allowed to do investigative journalism. The local papers have absolutely failed the people of Corsicana and Navarro County. I could not be more disgusted, disappointed, enraged by their absolute lack of oversight. Like we're supposed to be the 4th estate, right? The newspapers are supposed to be the 4th estate, and they're not allowed to talk about it. They would, it's just like, if you talk about this, we're not gonna cooperate.
Well, yeah, we've run into that problem quite a bit. I've been interviewed by some of the media, And I ask them, there's overwhelming evidence that most of this is scams, and they're they are afraid of getting sued. Basically, they don't want to
Hmm.
make claims where they're speaking truth to power and money, when that power and money nowadays kind of uses the legal system to attack anybody who disagrees with them. But obviously, traditionally, media companies had armies of lawyers that was their job to make sure that they were, their rights were defended. I think that's something that's changed over time. I want to go over this article that I see here. So, it looks like there was a campaign to fight against SB 1751 ahead of the Senate vote. I guess that campaign didn't really work, right? Because it passed. But now it's going to the House. Do you think it's going to do just as well in the House?
The House is more tricky, and they have not assigned it to a committee yet.
So you think it might die?
Yeah, I'm very worried that they're just going to let it languish, and then they're going to have to reintroduce it next session. It's not a priority. You know what? A priority here in Texas is, discriminating against trans children and banning books. That's what the Texas legislature is really focused on right now.
Let's
And
see.
so you're saying the
I hate
best
it
way,
here.
you're saying the best way to get this to not die, to get it to go to a committee, is to contact the Speaker of the House. So you would
Yes.
encourage.
Yes.
And do you have the information for the Texas Speaker? That
Yeah,
you
I
could give
can't
a
remember his
shout out,
name
or
right
we
now,
could put
but
it.
Let's
We
look
could
it
put
up.
it in the link to the
yeah,
video
definitely.
description.
It's a funny name like Phineas or something.
Let's find out.
Um,
Texas House
yeah,
of
I'm
Representatives, Speaker of the House. Dade Phelan. This is the guy?
Date. Yep.
So
The
if you
oversized
want it,
cartoon.
if you think this issue is important to you and you're a resident of Texas and you want, is it SB 1701?
1751.
SB 1751. If you want SB 1751 to go to a committee so it can eventually be passed in the House, this is the person you need to talk to.
Yep, and ask them to assign a committee.
Yeah, and anybody named Dade, bring some beers with you too. If you want to meet with him.
There you go.
Or a $5,000 donation.
Our local representative, Cody Harris, put forth a resolution protecting the rights of Bitcoin miners. I was incensed, and I called his office and I said, "Are you kidding me?" Like, he has an office here in no, it's in Palestine. But I was like, there are, the people in that residential neighborhood that they're building. Have you reached out to any of them? You're trying to protect their rights of Bitcoin miners, but you're not protecting your own people's rights. This is a company from out of state, and you're wanting to protect their rights. What about the people in that neighborhood's right to living a peaceful life? Or, it's just, it was
having
so
access
enraging.
to water
And
or having access to
yeah,
electricity.
they refused to let me speak with him. So I tried to get a call with him. I tried to get a meeting with him. And then when I was up in Austin for that hearing, I dropped by his office and I tried to get a meeting with him. And I had to track him down. He was in they said, "Oh, he's busy right now." So I had to track him down, and I found him in a different hearing. And I said, I want a meeting with you. I want to talk to you. And he goes, "Go to my office." And so I went to his staff and I said, "He said to come here. I want a meeting with him." And they set me up with an appointment at 2:30 that day. I leave and I immediately get a call from his chief of staff saying, "He will never speak with you. You need to find someone else because you're rude." And he will never speak with you. And so I'm like, I represent almost 700 of his constituents, and he refuses to speak with me. So that's the kind of thing we're up against in Texas. And that's kind of why I'm so happy and hopeful about the national coalition, because, Texas is kind of hostile to environmentalists and to, regular public citizens. But in other states, they are a little more responsive. But it's a very similar story over and over and over.
Tell us about this national coalition.
Yeah.
You're obviously, this local thing is a grassroots effort of you and some other people that are just assembling this. But now there's a national organization. What kind of structure is it? Do they have a website? What's their situation?
Yeah, we're working on the website, but we have at least 12 different states represented. And like I said, every time there's a new article about a local group upset about a Bitcoin mine, we try to find those people. We reach out. We're reaching out to local, state, environmental groups like Sierra clubs and that kind of stuff. And we
Are
have
you
been
are
talking
you
with,
part of the? Are you who's the principal in the national organization?
it's kind of like a very loose coalition, but like I said, Abby Buddington, Yvonne Taylor, oh gosh, what's his and Yvonne Taylor's partner with the
So it's still getting
Citizens for
set
Lake
up right now.
Guardians.
There's
So
not a
New York,
nonprofit yet or anything.
no, it's very loose still. And we're still, in the recruitment phase too, and like kind of starting it up. But we have been in contact with Senator Elizabeth Warren's office. We endorsed a bill by Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts called the like transparency in crypto asset mining. So like just even I think educating people and transparency, and like when you tell people that they're using this much water, this much electricity, getting paid this much by, the Texas taxpayers, it's enraging. So the transparency is like the first step. But we're working on a website. We've got folks from Georgia, West Virginia, North Carolina, Minnesota, New York, Pennsylvania, Texas. So we've got a whole bunch of, and a lot of these folks started as like anti-oil and gas or anti-fracking organizations. So some of these folks are like seasoned advocates. And I'm just like so honored to be a part of it, because these folks, what a big difference between us and Bitcoin people are? We're not doing this for profit. We don't make any money. We're actually spending our time and our money. We're doing this because we are trying to prevent catastrophe. So we can't be accused of like being shills or any of that stuff. Like we're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and because, if not us, who?
Right.
So
So if people want to find out more about this organization and possibly get involved, who do they contact? How is there a way of finding out more information?
we have a email address. You can also email us concerned citizens of Navarro at Gmail. I'm trying to think of that might be just the best way, because of the industry we are fighting, we have to be very discerning and we have to vet people. We're very concerned about people infiltrating that. Essentially, if you have a Bitcoin mine or you think one is coming, they like to call themselves data centers. So if you have a data center that has been, trotted out in your county, then find me on Twitter, or CC of Navarro on Twitter, or Concerned Citizens of Navarro at Gmail, and we will get you plugged in for sure.
And you are CC of NAVARRO on Twitter.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yes, sir.
And so, yeah, I certainly understand the need to kind of vet who you're dealing with. Many of us, like myself, I'm a little bit aloof about who I am, just because I've run into a lot of hate and some pretty nasty stuff by these people. When you're speaking truth to an industry that is involved in a lot of fraud and criminal activity, they can redirect some of that at you.
Yes,
And
we're being surveilled.
So you've had private investigators and stuff like that put on you guys?
We're absolutely being surveilled. So for almost a year now, there's like this silver car that kind of lurks around our house, and anytime we pop out of our driveway, it takes off. And I've been telling my mom and my husband, who live on the property with us, get the license plate number, and I saw the person again parked across from our property, pointing towards our driveway, and she is in a police uniform, but when we ran the license plate, it was either a fraudulent license plate or they're undercover. But like, why would you be undercover in a uniform? So I think someone is dressing up as a police officer and hanging out around my house. And this person actually, at one point, when I finally got to a good look at her, I said, "Oh my God, she's been on our property before." Because um, several months ago, this person came onto our porch and said, "A friend of mine," and she was dressed in a beige, like trooper uniform, like a police uniform, said, "Oh, a friend of mine had one of your packages delivered to my house." And I was like, "Okay, cool, thanks," because that happens.
Hmm.
Cool, thanks, bye. And she kind of lingered and was kind of looking into the house, and I'm like, just immediately got red flags. So I'm like, "Thank you, goodbye," and close the door. But then when I saw this person finally sitting in the car, it was the same person. So yeah, we're definitely being, for a while, I was like, am I being paranoid? Am I being crazy? No, we're absolutely being surveilled.
Yeah.
And it's intimidation.
Get somebody to go out the back of your house around the block and get some pictures while,
Yeah. Oh, we have a trail cam. We set up a trail cam. So
Yeah, it's
So,
unfortunate.
I just out of curiosity, do you have anything to say about your membership in Elizabeth Warren's crypto army?
yes, I love her. I mean, I've loved her ever since she was a scholar and a teacher. She wrote a book and did a lecture about the coming collapse of the middle class. She literally called the '08 crash, and people don't give her enough credit about that. Again, our group is nonpartisan. I am absolutely a partisan. So I love everything about Elizabeth Warren. And yeah, I would love to be a captain in her anti-crypto army.
But I guess ironically, what you're advocating for will not just help Democrats or liberals, but it will help everybody, Republicans too. So it's not
And
like, you're trying to destroy stuff.
yeah, and our group is nonpartisan, and I mean, Corsicana is deeply, deeply politically divided. Like this latest election we just had, I was trying to I was helping a friend on her mayoral campaign. She was with me when we protested the crypto mine here, and her opponent had never even thought about being a mayor. The Republican Party kind of like pressured him into it because they didn't have a replacement for the current Republican in office. And so they coordinated with the churches. They fear mongered. They said they're gonna turn Corsicana into like a little Austin, and there's gonna be drag shows and all that stuff. But when it comes to water, when it comes to electricity, when it comes to the grid, there is no side.
Right.
So our group is nonpartisan. I do not allow any kind of politics in that Facebook group, and because everyone understands how important water is, and so we just it's complete. It's one of the most beautiful unifying things I've ever witnessed in my entire life in Texas. Is it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Everybody knows this is disgusting and stupid.
So I guess your organization, its emphasis is on stopping crypto mining, but crypto as a whole, the whole industry just seems to be sketchy.
Absolutely.
Is there a way this can pivot into just a general, advocacy group in favor of calling attention to the fact that there really doesn't seem to be a whole lot of redeeming things about much of anything in the crypto, not just mining?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that is though, is they can always talk about the future possible things that could happen. So I want to focus on facts, reality, and the present day situation. And the facts and the reality in the present day situation is they're wasting an insane amount of water. They're destabilizing our grid. They're gouging Texans. So one of the interesting things we found out was Riot Platforms does not own the property here in Navarro County. Priority Power Management does. They actually are vertically integrated, and they have a power company, they have construction companies, so and they have this Bitcoin mining thing. That's why they changed their name to Platforms to make it more, general. But a large part of their business model is inserting themselves between Texas energy consumers and the grid. So when you tell people these folks are inserting themselves, they're destabilizing the grid, and then they're gouging you when they're paid to turn off, Texans are pissed. There is no one. So I've been speaking now a year. I will just come up to random strangers. Have you heard about the Bitcoin mine? Go through the Starbucks. Have you heard about the Bitcoin mine? a year speaking to hundreds, if not thousands of people. 10 people, less than 10 people actually own or are ambivalent to positive about about Bitcoin in Corsicana, Navarro County. So again, people aren't even using this. I call them factories that produce nothing. You can buy Russell Stover's candies. You can buy a mattress. You can buy the food that comes in that Pactiv packaging material. You cannot go into any store in Navarro County and utilize Bitcoin. You can't buy Bitcoin. You can't pay your bills with Bitcoin. It's a Ponzi scheme. If it was not using an insane amount of water and electricity, fine. The fact that it has real world effects and that these people target poor, depressed rural counties and they bring their hopes up and then they end up just hurting people. Like, they are literally making life materially worse in Milam County right now. So one of our group members went to Milam County and spoke with residents, and one resident said that she only showers once a week because the water situation is so hard there. And I told Chad Harris this the one time we had our face-to-face, and he said, well, there was already a water problem in Milam when we got there. And it's just like he's telling on himself. There was already a water problem, so they're obviously making it worse, and it's impacting people's lives. But they couldn't tell the truth if their life depended on it.
Well, we wish you a lot of luck, and I'm sure that we'll probably want to find out more about how things are progressing. And I definitely want to stay in touch with you and see how we can help you and your efforts. Yeah, and if there's any news with the organization, reach out to us, and we'll bring you back on again. And
yeah, I'd love to. And I'd love to introduce you to some of the other folks. Dr. Treva Gear is in Spartanburg, Georgia. If you Google what's happening there, they had a massive, and this is also, I'm so sorry, this is a social justice, environmental justice. They put these places in poor, rural, sometimes, minority neighborhoods, and they just destroy people's lives and land. And in Georgia, in Spartanburg, the company went bankrupt and these people got their lives back. It's like, so you should definitely talk to Dr. Treva Gear and Abby Buddington and Yvonne Taylor from Seneca Lake Guardians. And they're the ones that, pressured Governor Hochul to sign that moratorium on Bitcoin mining and stuff. So we've got some really, really incredible, passionate advocates that are trying to stop this madness. And I really, really, really appreciate y'all having me on and listening to me rant. And I'm sorry if I went all over.
No, a lot of good information.
Oh, thanks for joining us,
It's
Jackie.
like, oh
really
yeah,
appreciate
everything.
it.
Like, I'm just
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm gonna wind this down, but so people will put some links up for everybody's sites and all of that in the description. And until next episode, we appreciate everybody.
thank
Thanks
you
for
so much.
listening, everyone.